Hey there, I'm Sara, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know directly from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day when you say, I do. After photographing for over 20 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise. Because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you'll find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point with a fresh, honest take on the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sara Zarella, and today I am joined with two very special guests. We are taping a 3-part series. This is series number 1. So if you like what you hear today, stay tuned for the next 2 series coming at you in a couple weeks. I am joined by Matthew Nunes. He is the senior tent consultant at Pranzi Rentals, Inc. And with him is Megan Kenney-Pharo. She's a sales manager at Pranzi Tents and Events. We are going to be talking about tents today. So if you're thinking about having a tented wedding and you want to understand the terminology and all the options that are out there, and also too, just really become an expert so you understand what to ask your tent specialist, this is the podcast episode for you. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sara Zarella, and I have 2 very special guests here. Extra special because they brought us coffee. So for those viewers who are watching us on YouTube, I am not going to hide this coffee. I need this today. So thank you guys for bringing it. But anyway, for our listeners and our viewers, can you please tell everybody who you are, who you serve, and what you do in your business?
Sure. Thanks, Sara. Thanks so much for having us. My name is Matt Nunes, and I'm with Pranzi Tents and Events, and I am a senior tent consultant there. I've been there about 4 years, and I came over from Peak and Newport Tent a little bit before that, but I've been around tenting and the industry and weddings and all sorts of different events, hospitality space for a lot of years. I am a boomer. I'll put that right out there right now. I mean, you don't get many of those these days, but that's kind of why I keep close to Megan, my colleague, because she's able to relate a lot to, we'll just say a younger generation, whether that's X,
But you have the expertise.
Yeah.
You're like the wizard behind the curtain.
Right? Very fitting with Wicked right now.
That's it.
Listen, you come with expertise, hence your title, the main tent guy, we're going to call you. And, expertise comes a long way, especially when you're dealing with a structure. Like that's the end of the day. Like it's a beast. It's a structure. It's a movable space. Yeah. So we need someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And so in terms of tent terminology, that may mean something to someone. So typically you're not in a structure tent a lot of the times for a wedding, but you could be in a frame tent. You could be in a pole tent or tension tent, a century or sailcloth. And each one of those have different sizes, designs, and things like that. And so when I have that initial meeting or consultation, whether it's a, phone call or something like that, it's an unfolding of what they're envisioning for their day. What is this going to be a private residence? Is this going to be at a property or venue? And then how does that translate into what we have? Because we have small, large, big, can handle 200, 400, weddings 150. And so all of that begins to govern where you're going to land.
And for our listeners and our viewers, if you're listening to Matt's terminology and you're like, what is he talking about? This is why this podcast is here today. We're going to lay it out because you said a lot of terminology for you. It's your everyday life.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that don't understand that there's so much variety when they're thinking about tents and like where is the right place, the right season. So we're really going to break anything down about tents. But before we get into that, who's to the left of you?
Megan Kenney-Pharo.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you wanted to get into how we came into the
Yes.
business
Yeah.
together and things like that. So when I landed at Pranzi just about 4 years ago, Megan was at the Preservation Society in Newport. I live in Newport, grew up in Newport, and so I know the landscape very well over there. And so that wasn't a client that we were supporting at the time or had some minimal exposure to them from Pranzi perspective. But it was a client that I was intimately familiar with and reached out and asked for the opportunity. And then the rest is
Here we
kind of
are.
history. Yeah. She's, been with Pranzi now just about 6 months, came over out of the Preservation Society and landed here. But we've been having so much fun over that time, 3 years now, on all the different events throughout the Preservation Society. And now we get to take this show anywhere that we can land.
Here with you.
There you go. So
You say a little
tell
bit
us who
more.
you are, Meg.
Yeah. So my name is Megan Kenney-Pharo. I've been in hospitality 20-ish years now. I started food and beverage and really landed my career in Newport and have had some really great opportunities, like Matt mentioned, most recently for the Newport Mansions for a little over 5 years, and got to know some great people throughout that. And when it came time to make a change for me personally, I thought about who did I really enjoy working with and what does the next chapter for me look like. And between the relationship that Matt and I have created and what Pranzi is doing and offering in the space, it really just felt like the right fit. So I called them and said, hey, is there room at the table? And I feel really lucky that there was.
You have to tell them about your friend.
So I called Matt and I said to him, hey, I have a friend who's interested in working for Pranzi Tents and Events. Do you have some time? And he said, sure, because that's the nice guy that Matt is. He was willing to take time out of his day to hear and learn about my friend. So we get to a coffee shop in Newport and we sit down and he's like, oh, so tell me about your friend. And like blank stare because it's me.
Right. Well, Matt, there's a song out there called Pina Colada.
Yeah.
Granted, it's on the dating side and you're not dating, but it's the same theme. It's the same theme, Matt.
I told you, I'm a boomer, so it's like
It didn't
I
sit.
took her at her word. Like, oh, tell me about your friend. Like, it's just firing
Right.
over my head until she said, "It's me."
And that was
I'm
that goes
interested.
to it, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was the green light that I was making the right decision, that you were willing to take the time to even talk with
to
me
a friend.
about my friend.
About a friend.
And from that moment on, I knew it was going to be, great things ahead. And coming over, new adventures are always a little scary,
Yep.
but sitting side by side and we doing this and our meetings and working with clients that we either had separate relationships with or combined relationships, it's been great. And we're, like you said, having a great time. That's
So it's a
really
power
what we're
team.
excited.
Yeah.
Power team.
And different strengths.
Yep. So basically, for our listeners and our viewers, even though they service the Southern New England area, if you are thinking about having a tented wedding or event, but mostly our listeners are obviously having weddings, definitely tune in to this episode because we're going to kind of break it down. So kind of going back to Matt, what you were saying, you were spitting out a lot of terminology.
Yeah.
What's a sail tent? Let's just start there.
Sailcloth.
Sailcloth.
Sailcloth tent.
I mean, I know.
Yeah.
I only said that because that's what I had at my wedding, right? But do tell.
So within the category of
Tell us the categories of tents first. Let's
Right.
break those down because the other thing is too, there's so much out there.
Yeah. And so at the highest end,
Yeah.
you'll be seeing structure tents. And that's when you get into they're basically heavy gauge aluminum structures that are built for the event. And so you can do so many just really elaborate things with them. You can have them set at 13 feet in terms of the eave height. That would be the side where the side of the tent comes down and meets the leg that comes up. So imagine something 13 feet high versus 8 feet high in terms of overlooking a vista. You can use glass walls in those. It's just very, very, it's a category that is really unique and really high end. And you're getting into some real significant budget when you're there.
I mean, I know, I mean, obviously we're not going to hold you to it, you
Yeah.
know, but like in general, what's the budget range? Just so people have like a tangible idea of what you're talking about. Because when you say high end,
Yeah.
some people might be thinking X amount. Where are we starting?
Yeah.
Like
And-
starting at that. I mean, granted, there's a lot of variables. I know it's as far as like where it's going, but like, I guess I'm just trying to say like, where's that starting price for that?
Well, typically, that's just the top, because the other thing that's going to come into it is the flooring solution. And the other thing is the topography of the landscape that it's going over, what the elevation change is from where its starting point is at a high point to its low point. And all of those factors begin to build out into a square footage for the flooring, for the subflooring, for the structure
Yep.
on top of that, how that ties in, and things like that. And then also the size of it. So you can, if you have a wedding for 100, you only need so many square feet. And then if you have a wedding for 300, you're going to need 3 times that. And so it's literally 3 times the cost as you build it out. So I'm just trying to think as a general rule of thumb. You can get into $20 to $25 a square foot for all of those components in there. And again, that would go up in the event that you were using glass walls and different things like that. So that a lot of that is a category that we're not even in. So I'd like to even think that, that segment of the market, while I understand it and have seen it, and when it's executed, it's unbelievable. But I think a majority of the market rests in what would be called a frame tent, which is now scaling down the overall structure. It's still aluminum. You can get into the clear top. You can get into clear top paneling. And
not to interrupt you, but I was going to say on a visual standpoint, just to kind of get something tangible for the listeners, a lot of times if people are listening to this podcast, they'll start looking at maybe some celebrities' weddings, and you can start to see the structure that you just talked about at these weddings.
Yeah.
You could tell that they're in a I've seen it. Like we're getting in like big time celebrities. I mean, I think honestly, the guy that runs Amazon, I want to say he was in this type of tent. You can see it in the background. You can tell that it's a structured tent.
But
so that's what we're talking about. That's where we're.
It's also not New England, but let's
right.
You talked about weather before and knowing your season and things like that. And I think when you get into the structures, or how many times have you heard, I saw this picture online and the whole wedding was al fresco. I was like, I love that for them in California or Italy or wherever they are. But we really need to talk about what happens if that's not the rainbow and sunshine day that we want, and that comes into play as well,
which we'll talk about that,
right.
Because I know I want to get, which I think we were getting into, Matt, was the clear tents, because weather,
right?
Because I know when I was getting married, I really wanted a clear tent, but the time of year, I was told strongly no, because it would you were creating a greenhouse. So talk to us a little bit about the clear tents.
Yeah. So staying with the theme of structured tent, the next category down would be frame tents. And so we routinely do a lot of 40 wide and 50 wide and 30 wide tents of frame, which we be called essentially baby structures, if you want to call them that. And Megan and I had one recently, not too long ago, at the Rose Cliff. It was a nice 40 by 60 for the ceremony, clear top. with gable ends and different things like that. So there's always a lot of terminology, and one of the other things, coming back to your comment on, we want to have a clear top. So my next question is, well, what time is the ceremony? What time of your day are you going to be utilizing it? And so if it's late enough in the day, maybe you're able to work that and mitigate the heat of the day out from the clear top tent, so that when you come into it 4, 5, 6 o'clock, you're able to enjoy it, and then all of the canopy clear and things like that. The other thing is having it be optional, to say, look, we're not going to set this until 2 days before. And if it's a cloudy, overcast, and cool day, go for it. And you're not going to have that blazing sun, even though it may be August. Or paneling. You can get into partially clear. Let's do the ends in clear, and the gable ends are then clear, and then the center of it is in white, so the canopies, yeah.
And we believe
So,
in that. That's our seasonal install over at Iris on the Wharf. It's
yes, yeah.
stunning. If you're looking
That's,
for an example, you can pull that photo up with the white center and the clear ends. And we put that up mid-May to mid-October. And that's kind of the solution, right? The ends and the clear give it this breathing room and beautiful view, but that center gives you a little shade that's necessary in those July and August months.
yeah. And so I had mentioned some widths, and so that tent at Iris is standardly set at 50 by 90. But then the panels come in base, so you can just add on and
Based on
scale to what you need in
your
terms of the
need.
guest count and
Guest count.
things like that. So
That's a good thing to know in New England too, especially if you're looking in that Newport area. I'm familiar with, you cannot add square footage to an indoor venue. It's just not possible. But when you get into a tent, it is all customizable. So we are able to scale up if we need to, which is cool.
So then what, going back to tents after that, what's the next tent?
well, you get in, once you get out of a frame, you'll get into what's called a tension tent. That means it's held down with guy lines and staking and things like that. Within the tension tents, there are primarily two that you work from: a century tent, which is a true rectangle in shape, and then a sailcloth tent,
Sailcloth,
which
yes.
has the rounded ends and a different eave along the valance and things like that. A little bit of a different coloring and fabric weight and things like that. So sailcloths are, Megan
agree
always
to
gives me a
disagree.
hard time because I love them as a tent, and maybe it's going all the way back to, again. So I've been around a long time. Mike Corcoran, the founder of Newport Tent, got into the tent business by providing Gatsby tents, cloth tents, to the filming of The Great Gatsby. And so there's something that I think the sailcloth brings in terms of that vintage, antiquity, gilded age component, truly to a garden wedding and ceremony and things
Natural
like that.
poles.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
natural
It's beautiful.
wood poles.
And if you're searching weddings, you're looking on Instagram, Pinterest, 9 times out of 10, that's what you're seeing, right?
Yes.
The flags are flying,
Right.
the sky is blue, everything's great.
And then is there another, before we get into other aspects of tenting, is there another type of tent you want to go over?
The only other one would be frame tents, which are more utilitarian for catering support and things like that. But how you kind of marry all those into the landscape on the day, on the site that you're on, at the venue that you're on, is also, even though it's a simple aluminum rectangle and kind of the least inexpensive in terms of the category. How you use it is important as well.
Well, what we'll do is, before we take our break, right? And when we get back with the break, we'll share some stories and some trends that are out there. But let's talk a little bit about, Megan, you talked earlier about weather, and same thing, Matt. You were saying a little bit about, like, we're not putting it up until 2 days before. So tell us, like, why is that important to check the weather and the season? And now that you've explained all these different types of tents, right?
Yeah.
What does that element do to what you need to do with your setup?
What doesn't it do?
Go ahead.
So preparation and having the right support team is so unbelievably important in any aspect of planning a wedding, and really when it comes to the tenting specifically, Matt has been my savior more times than I can count. Again, running venues on the water in New England isn't always easy. So finding that balance of delivering the dream while making sure everyone is comfortable and we're keeping guest experience in the front is crucial. So, Matt and I have had a lot of late night, early morning calls of what we're going to do, and I always trust him. And if I could give any advice to brides listening and watching, it is that it is everybody wants you to have this beautiful dream day. And when we say we have to execute a weather plan, it is not because we want to,
Mhm.
it is because we know that is what's best. And I have to tell you, I've been standing under tents where it was supposed to rain and it doesn't. I've been in places where it doesn't say it's raining and I can physically feel the rain.
Mhm.
So, I've had brides, I'm looking at the app and it says it's fine and all those things. So, Matt's 40, 50 plus years experience in
Yeah,
tenting
we'll
and
give it 40.
Yeah.
in New
Maybe
England and
50 though.
Newport. I trusted him and he's never steered me wrong. So it really is important. It's something that we try to talk about in our early consultations and site visits, is knowing what plan A, B, and C is, and
Mhm.
how we align that with the timeline and installation and things like that.
Yeah. I think, what's that old joke? If you don't like the weather in New England, wait a minute. And, that translates into your day. And so
Yeah.
if you think, you're under the tent, say, or actively utilizing the tent on the day of a wedding, probably for about 6 to 8 hours. By the time the florist and the caterer and everybody begins to get in to do their prep and final, preparations before that comes. So the elements that you're dealing with are the ambient temperature, the wind, rain, what is going to unfold over the duration of that timeline.
Mhm.
It could be beautiful at 4 or 5 o'clock, but there's a storm coming in, and by 7 or 8, you now have 20-mile-an-hour winds and it's raining. So, how do you adjust? How do you pivot?
So
And
literally, for any of the longtime listeners, you've heard me sometimes reference my wedding, and I'm only doing that because it's something that, I physically had been on the other side of it, and everything you explained happened on August 31st of 2014. It was extremely hot, bright sunny, like no wind, roasting 90. It went that from wind and then a rainstorm. I mean, you name it, it
yeah,
all happened in one day, and
yeah,
I was in a tent.
yeah,
But I also want to just kind of say, like, at the end of the day, everybody was comfortable because obviously the execution was perfect and it was fine. And flaps were put down when it rained and flaps were put up when it wasn't. But my point is, for the listeners and for people who are getting married, there's a lot of options. And obviously, if you sit down with Meg and Matt, you'll go over all of those options. But I also think that it's really important, like you said, we all think about our wedding day, right? And we all have this vision. And sometimes your vision has to change due to elements that are out of your control. But also, too, it's really important to think about your guest experience, because you can't have a wedding without the both of you. That's first and foremost. I think people forget that
Right.
it's a marriage,
right,
right?
right.
But in regards to the celebration, that's for your guest, right? So, like, if your guests are cold, if your guests are hot, if your like you talked about the ambient temperature, if there is no wind coming through, like if
Yeah,
it's just like stagnant air, like bottom line is you're going to lose them all. Like
right.
it's going to be an uncomfortable experience. So I think it's really important to listen to the people who do this and why they do this. Just to share a story, Meg and I were on a wedding last spring, or was it? I don't know, fall. I don't know how they all. It was last year.
It was there somewhere.
there.
We were there.
And I got a text from Meg, and she said, we had to set up plan B. We have to set up the ceremony tent because the ceremony was supposed to be outside. But obviously there was rain in the forecast, and they just wanted to be prepared.
Right.
And where you set it up, you were making sure the bride was not excited about this, but you were making sure that the information you're giving to the bride was correct. And because what she was concerned about was the visual of her pictures. And she wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to affect some of her pictures.
Of course.
If you needed to not use plan B, and she actually got married out on the lawn.
Right.
And you were right. And also, too, it was like it wasn't going to affect her pictures, but it was good to communicate with me to know that that was a pain point for her. So there's ways that we can photograph to have it not in the photo.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, we didn't need to use the tent, but it was there just in case because, like you said, Matt, wait a minute, and the weather changes. But like if she got married, like I don't know, 10 minutes before, she would have needed that tent. Like it ended up raining. My point is, there's reasons, and there's like you have to take that in consideration when you are dealing with an outside wedding. I mean, even if you're getting married inside a venue, the weather's always a factor. It always is.
Yeah, I think coming back to when you think about, you mentioned the two of you are coming together, and so it's really about that celebration and then the guest experience. But at that point during the event, they want none of that concern. And so that's where you're relying on the teams that you've assembled from a vendor standpoint, all the way down to the caterer, to the tent company, to the planner, to the florist, to everybody else has to be behind the scenes adapting to what the conditions are unfolding, because the bride, the groom, the mother of the bride, the father of the bride, they're not going to be involved in these decisions. They're relying on you to execute and give your guests a guest experience that is memorable in spite of inclemency.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
All right. And then when we come back, I would love to talk a little bit about some stories. All right. Cliffhanger.
Secrets behind, secrets unveiled.
Secrets we're going to unveil. All right. So we'll be right back. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcast. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. All right, well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sara Zarella, and before the break, we were talking to the King of Tents. That's what your name is going to be, King of Tents.
Yes.
Well,
Okay, and
I
his
would not
sidekick,
say
Meg.
that. There are plenty of people out there.
But listen.
So I do have to then share, as growing up and working for Newport Tent, Billy Corcoran had given me the name Chief of the Good Time Gang.
Okay.
So
Chief of the Good Time
I had a
Gang.
rule when I was on site that we'd be installing the tent, and then we get to such a point in the install when I was like, you know what? We need a 5-minute fool around. And we do anything. We play football. We do it.
Yeah.
So Chief of the Good Time Gang. Now I'm the King of Tents. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a little more seasoned.
Listen, I like it all.
All fitting.
All fitting. But during the break, we were talking a little bit about stories, and we're just yip-yapping. I'm like, no, we need to go back on air. So here we are. Talk to me about some of the things we were just talking about on break. I think, Meg, let's start there. I know that we talked about there was the golden rule.
Golden ratio.
Right. We're gonna
Yeah.
cliffhang that one.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I really want to talk a little bit about social media and trends and what
Yes.
we're seeing out there. And I really want our listeners to really have a glimpse of like practicalness and what's happening.
Sure. So I started events in almost 10 years ago now. And at that time, it was just really Pinterest, right? So you were going on Pinterest, can you share my board and all of those things? And we quickly started to see people sending photos and there's no price tag on the bottom, right? There's no price tag, there's no location. And it was almost misleading. And that's where, now we have the beauty of planners and king of tents and things like that to kind of guide us. But one of the biggest things we were talking about before the break was weather. And I think there was a trend, is that the word trend,
Mhm.
going around where there were these little 15-second TikTok videos of people getting caught in the rain in a ceremony. To me, I will tell you, as a former venue manager, being in events, as a person, as a guest, that is like a nightmare. I got all dressed up. I probably like stewed over what I was going to wear for months to come to your wedding. A lot of them are black tie or black tie optional, all of these things. Everyone's feeling good. I don't want to stand in the rain. And your guests don't want to either. So when the venue manager, your planner, the tent consultants are talking to you about the weather plan, we are coming from a place of care, and not only for the couple and the vendors and your photos and memories and all these things, but the guest experience as well. And I will tell you right now, your family and friends love you so much, and they are so honored to be there. They do not want to sit in the rain
No.
and watch your ceremony. They
No.
will stand inside. They
No.
will go back to the bus. They will do all of these things. But what we really want them to do is be part of your moment and be present. And that's where the rain plan really comes into play, and stepping out of the emotion of it, of being what the dream was and how it pivots. You're getting married. Right? At the end of the day, we're sitting around, we're
Mhm.
all happily married. I know both of you very well, and I
Mhm.
love your spouses equally. And that's what it's really about. And
Mhm.
reminding yourself that, okay, I wanted to get married outside. The weather had a different plan, but I'm still going to walk down the aisle and stand next to this person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life
Mhm.
with. And all of the people that I love are there. So keep that in mind while you're scrolling and saving pictures and making boards and all of those things. Is that's what it looks like on your computer, on your phone, on paper. But at the end of the day, you're getting married. How awesome is that, right?
And I think also too, um, when you're scrolling, right? For you all, hopefully, this is your one time doing this, okay? So,
Sometimes it takes a second time.
yeah, fair, fair. And actually, Dan and I have done those. We've done second, and
Yeah.
we love that because we're cheering you on. But my point is, we do this every weekend. So when you're scrolling, it's easy, and we're not trying to fault you. It's easy to see something like, I want that, but you're not thinking big picture, and we do. And so, like Meg was saying, seeing a really cool thing, like, it's how romantic is it to be getting married, and it's like the scene from The Notebook, right? And it's
Right.
raining, and I mean, at the end of the day, you're not seeing what's happening behind the lens, which is your guests are literally running. They don't want to get rained on, then they're wet. I mean, just a quick little story. Dan and I did a wedding where the ceremony was outside. There was no plan B. There was no tent. I don't even think the venue space even had the space to bring the guest in to get married because they couldn't flip the room. It was a whole thing. But my point is, they're like, we'll do this really quick. I mean, it was miserable watching the guests. Like, they're all trying to like cover underneath umbrellas. Anyway, at the end of the day, certain things that you see might resonate for you, but you got to think like big picture.
Right.
And like you have to think like all people involved. And anyway, that's very overwhelming. So that's where you all come in.
Right.
So when you are listening to us and you're learning this terminology and you're getting married in a tent, that's when you have to start asking these questions to the company that's providing the tent. So, and listening to the reasons of why you can do certain things and you can't do certain things, but at least you're coming with an educated mind, right? After
Right.
listening to us,
And
right?
an open mind, right?
Yes.
That's what we're hoping to get across, is we share what we know and what we've experienced so that that doesn't happen to you. And of course, right, wherever you are, there's always that one little chance that you might get caught, and we'll all pivot as we can and all of those things. I've done that before too, because there was 0% chance for like 5 days before and 5 days after, and the weather said, no, I'm just gonna take a little visit and surprise you. Yay. But we do everything that we can to avoid those moments and that stress. And like you said, behind the lens, you don't see that she was trying to retouch up her makeup and her
Yes.
hair
Mhm.
and your dress is wet and all of these things that are preventing you from being at your cocktail hour or preparing for your first dance or taking those sunset pictures or whatever it is. So where we're coming from is a place of like I said, love and care
Mhm.
and experience more
Right.
than anything. We've just been there in muck
Been there,
boots,
done
But
that.
it's
muck boots, wet socks,
Yes.
yeah,
all the things.
yeah.
So what
I,
we'll do is before we wrap up the show, I want to get into a little bit about the
golden ratio.
golden
Okay.
ratio.
Well, it kind of, translates into some of this conversation we've been having around weather. I think the most important thing that you can do is visit the site, even if it's a venue that you're familiar with, even if it's certainly if it's a private residence, and you have to get into the mindset with the client around what is your vision. And so let's say it's 75 degrees, sunny, not a stitch of wind. How do you envision this lawn? How do you, how are you going to come in? Where's the guest arrival? All of these components. And then all of the contingencies begin to unfold. Where's the ceremony going to be? Is the ceremony on site? How are you going to transition from there into the tent for cocktails? Where are cocktails? And all of these components have certain tenting requirements for them in the event of weather. So if the ceremony needs a tent in the event of rain, you've got to understand, well, what size tent is that? It's going to be theater style seating, ceremony style seating. So that's a lot less square footage than a plated dinner and things like that. So and then the design and shape and things like that have to adapt to the yard
Yeah.
size and where you want the view to be and things like that. So whether you're in a 40 by 60 or a 30 by 80 or how all those square footages translate to the property. So all of this is kind of going on from the initial phone call when somebody calls in. The first thing I'm asking is,
Yeah.
total guest count. What are you? And so I don't know whether it's considered a trade secret because it's out there, but there's something called the golden ratio. And basically, that's the dimensions of width to length. You want to be around 1.613 in terms of the ratio. And I don't know who developed it and things like that. I wish I knew all the backstory. But the idea is that ratio then translates into smaller and smaller spaces within that rectangle that make for this optimal experience in terms of the guest spacing at a 4-foot round table, at a 5-foot round table, and things like that. So I don't know if we were to take, say, a 40 by 60.
Okay. So we're
All
going to do
right.
that. 40 by 60 on the
Got it.
calculator.
So that's 2,400 square feet
Okay.
of tent. And so typically for a ceremony, you would need about 8 square feet per person. So let's do the math on that first to see what our guest count is. So 2,400 divided by
300.
8. So we could technically, that'd be very tight, but you could technically fit 300 into that. And so routinely,
go.
that would be utilized for a ceremony for 200 by the time you get to with the ceremony riser and different things like that. Now, if we look and say, well, what is the width? 40 divided into 6.
Mm, all right.
No, six
Oh,
divided by 4.
Meg can't use a calculator.
no, clearly not.
So you notice I didn't have mine.
Yeah.
I
He's like,
put
I'm
her
gonna put
under
her
the
on the
gun.
spot. Pretty sure I said to someone yesterday,
Nice job, Matt.
Right?
I'm a numbers
Into
person.
it.
So that comes out to 1.5, right?
Okay.
1.5. And so if the golden ratio is 1.613, then you're close to that. And so the reason that's important is a bride, a groom, whoever is out making that initial inquiry on a tent, they're not going to have any clue in terms of what's happening under the hood in terms of the professional that is beginning to think about how does all this translate
Translate.
into the size tent
Yes.
that you need, the style tent that you need, the walling requirement, where is the prevailing wind, all these different components. So there's a lot to it. And it's not as easy as, oh, I need to call vendor A and B and just lay down a couple of
Right.
proposals and away I go.
That's a
And
good point.
and also too, that translate into dollar signs.
Yes.
Right.
Because there's a lot of different sizing and items that you can put in a tent and need in a tent, which, so for our listeners and our viewers, we're going to do a part 2 of this episode because there's a whole other side of what you guys do. And I think that's a good way to end because we're going right into, right? Like why, like, for example, we have to think about tables and all these other things that are happening underneath the tent. And hence why you need the square footage, right? And rentals. And you talked a little bit about sides and heaters and fans. And so what we're going to do is, so for our viewers, you know, we're going to have part 2 in a couple weeks. So this is our cliffhanger. But before we go to part 2, all right, hot takes.
Hot takes.
Who wants to go first?
You go first. I told you I'm a boomer. I'm struggling with this. Like, it feels pressure.
A lot of pressure, man. A lot of pressure.
I am an iced coffee drinker.
Ooh.
Any time of year. If I'm at home, maybe in a mug, hot coffee. Iced coffee, though. Today, always.
100%. It's funny when you asked me for my coffee order. I am like literally, it's even on my website, iced coffee 24/7.
I know. I was surprised.
Were you surprised by that?
I was surprised.
Because I cannot warm up.
Yeah.
I am, for some reason, been so cold this winter.
It just could be like the mountains of snow everywhere closing in on us.
I cannot warm up. I have been, and it kills me to be drinking hot coffee, but I have to.
Yeah. I feel you.
So I would stay with the coffee and be like, one, it's always hot coffee. It can be 90 degrees, July day. I love hot coffee. And the other thing is, if recommended, 2 to 4 cups, 6 or 8 ounce cups are good for you in terms of coffee intake, I fully believe then that 8 to like 15 cups a day must be great for you.
Yeah. And for anybody who knows Matt does not need a lot of caffeine, so we do switch him to decaf at some point. Just so you know, I'm on it.
There we go. Good thing. There you go, Matt. At least you have Meg,
keep it level.
Keep it at level. All right, guys. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled. But wrap up question. And we'll just do this in bullets because you're going to come right back on, right?
Right.
Sure.
What are some key points that couples should be asking their tented companies to make sure that they're inquiring with a professional company?
I think most importantly is the time invested to understand their vision and the space. And I think, and again, maybe it's, old school, boomer school or whatever. It's like, if you look up my social, media presence, it's awful. Like I don't have an Instagram account. I've never checked on my kids. I'm just old school that way. And, so I rely heavily on getting in front of someone, getting eyes on them, seeing the property, seeing and hearing from them what is going to transpire for their day, and then putting that together. And just always know you have a lot of options out there. And so it's like, and each one of these decisions is going to come with a pro and con to it. And so the consultative process starts on the phone, on that initial inquiry, and where you're learning about that. I just think it's understated and maybe undervalued in terms of the importance of that relationship for the service that you're going to provide. I mean, you're going to spend some money on that day, and you want to rely on the relationship and understanding that you've communicated with each other through that process. I don't,
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think we've become so comfortable, just everyone on a website has a call to action or an inquiry form that you're putting through, but it's so much more than that. It's when it comes to especially the tenting, and when you're at a private home or somewhere we haven't been before, we're always really excited to get out there and into the field. But it's not ever something that you can just fill out our inquiry form and we could just buzz back a price. It's so much more than that. And Matt and I, and what I love about Matt is he really takes it to that next level. And why I'm excited to be on the team is that consultation really is just the starting point of our relationship with our clients, and how we're going to work with them and guide them throughout. And don't rush the process, right? Really, Matt said there's a price to it. It's an investment, and we want to just make sure that you're educated and making the one that makes the most sense. So when you don't hear back from us with an initial quote from your inquiry, it's only because we want to make sure we get it right the first time, and that takes a little time. And we're running into it now. As much as Matt would absolutely go out and measure your backyard, it's probably best for us to wait till the snow melts a little bit. We can get an accurate measurement. So it's not turnkey as quick as some people think or like, but it's all with good intentions.
And so what I'll do is I will put all of Pranzi's information on our show notes, which you can find on our blog, which is at sarahzarella.com/wedding podcast. You can also catch us on YouTube. My last name is with 2 R's, and there's no H in my name. So Sara Zarella Photography. And we are now on Instagram, just for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. So definitely go check us out. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So for our
It's
listeners,
fun.
Meg and Matt will be on in the next episode. So definitely download, listen to this, and get ready for part 2, because there is an entire other section of Pranzi that we're going to talk about next episode.
Looking
Thanks,
forward to
Sarah.
it.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes, along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening, so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support, and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.